miss the old cars. So when this Model T came in, I actually got sort of excited because it's got to be years since we had a Model T here.
Right there, hold it right there, straight. Whoa, whoa, wow.
Okay.
There's the brake, yep.
When we first got the car in, we had no compression in number 2 cylinder. We had the valves weren't sealing.
What pleased me even more is, despite how little Model Ts are worth these days, the owner has still decided to go for comprehensive restorations. So, you know, Ron pulled the top off the engine.
Oh, that was messy.
We determined that the cylinder bores and the pistons and everything look like they're just fine, but the valves are pretty worn.
See, they look like they're closing, but
This one's not. I can see right through it right
can
there.
you right there?
As a matter of fact, they're concave.
I think the valves aren't even round anymore.
Yeah, I think it needs new ones because it's pitted as well.
The valve face is well worn, so they're not serviceable. We have to get new valves.
They used to be like 85 cents each.
They're $16 now.
There you go. Yeah. We're making pretty good progress on this Model T.
I have new valves to put in it, so I'm just recutting the valve angle in the cylinder block here with this tool. It's got little cutters on it. These cutters cut the valve seat to 46 degrees, and the valve itself is cut at 45 degrees, so that 1 degree of interference helps seal the valve.
He's bringing this in so that you have the same angle inside as you do on the valve on the outside. So when they close, they seal up, your compression stays up high.
Okay, so now what we do, we gotta lap the new valve in. I put this compound on here. It's a very gritty compound. You put between the valve and the block, and it sort of seats the valve. Rub it together and it cleans it off. It's like sandpaper. It's a gritty paste, so it's grinding. As I do this, you can hear it. All right, now the fun part. I have to get the valve spring compressed, and I have to get this tiny little pin in place. The valve springs are pretty light. They're easy to compress, so I just have a couple of snap ring pliers and a pry bar, like a little screwdriver, to compress the spring. Okay, something like that. This is gonna be tricky. Once I get it in place, I can't find the hole. But this is just a little bit of a pain in the ass to get that up. And then where I can see the hole, then I gotta hold it, and I gotta get my little pin in there without losing it. And I've had it up there a couple times where it's gonna be okay. I've never worked on one of these things before, done anything like this before. Easy to take it apart, but putting it back together, you pretty well need 3 arms. Nightmare.
How's the valve coming?
Oh, I'm just trying to get these pins in. It's a pain.
Sometimes you need a second, third, or fourth hand when you're putting these things back together. Here, I got an extra hand.
Okay, let me see. Here it is.
Okay, here I go.
Okay. Can you see it? Yeah, you're there. Oh, you know what? That's okay. That's okay. There. It was just that little, I just moved it a touch and pop in. Okay.
Nice.
All right. Well, the nightmare's over. That's it. Nice.
The Z28's becoming a real classic. These cars had little V8s in them, little 5-speed, run along the road real nice. The customers asked us to give them a little bit more horsepower, upgrade the exhaust, give them a deeper tone. Talon took the lead on this, and he's gonna go from one end to the other. He's gonna do the cam, the intake, the carburetor, so that the gentleman will have the power that he's looking for.
Well, this is the last of the real Camaros as far as I'm concerned, because it's the last one with a carburetor, a distributor, and it's a manual, rear-wheel drive. The cool thing is, this guy wants a little bit of horsepower. So one of my favorite things to do to a small block Chevy is put a camshaft in it. Camshafts are the coolest part of the motor as far as I'm concerned. This literally creates the personality of the engine. The camshaft's responsible for the timing of the valves inside the engine, and it really dictates the way it sounds and performs. I'm just gonna put some engine oil in where the bearing goes, and then the first bearing. It's tough to do in the car, just because you're limited on room, and you gotta be really careful on these bearings because they're quite soft. This isn't a crazy camshaft. It's a sort of a middle of the road, commonly called an RV cam or recreational vehicle cam, but I'm sure it'll wake this thing up quite a bit. So sometimes you drive this in with a sledgehammer and then it just sort of seats itself, but I like to be extremely gentle on the bearings. And at this point, I'm gonna put the gear on just so I can hold the camshaft. A little tight doing it in the car, but I've done this a million times. Cam's in.
So I'm working on this 1915 Model T. I've cut new valve seats and put 2 new valves in, and they look good.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah, hey, Dave.
So how you making out on this?
Well, good. I cut the valve seats on number 2 here. The number 2 is the only cylinder I had issues with compression. At the beginning, we were only going to do that number 2 cylinder where we had no compression. But I pulled the 2 number 1 valves out, and I noticed that the valve face is well worn. That valve is pretty.
Oh, yeah, no. What year is this?
2015. No, it's 10.
Must be a Toyota. Ron was a little confused about the production date of this car. He was only off by about, well, I don't know, a century.
Yeah. It's like we don't even have any 2015 cars in here. Where that came from, I don't know.
That's unusable.
Yeah.
Well, they're not expensive. You know, it doesn't make sense when you've got one valve that's worn out and the others are showing signs of wearing out to not replace all of them. I mean, they're cheap and we're already there. False economy to not do it now.
Okay, I'm gonna order 6 more valves.
Yep.
That's my next step. You know, it would have been okay just doing that 1 cylinder, and I don't know how many miles this car's gonna get on it after, you know, but it's best to have it running as best as possible.
And yeah, this car's out of warranty, that's for sure.
Yeah. Alrighty, the boss has spoken.
I have to line up this very small circle here. This is a critical spot to be careful to align it properly.
Now that the assessment is completed, we're getting it torn down. All that time for 2 little bolts?
Today I'm working on the 1985 Camaro. Next I'm gonna lube up the lifters, slap them into the lifter valley. These are new lifters with the camshaft because they wear together. These are hydraulic lifters, so they ride directly on the camshaft, not a roller, and they fill up with oil pressurized from the engine. A little self-adjusting unit, very innovative for its time. Remember, this engine's designed in the 50s. There's 16 lifters, 2 for each cylinder. Now I'm gonna install the timing gear. This gear goes on the crank, and I have to line up this very small circle here with a corresponding circle on the timing gear, right here. This is a critical spot to be careful to align it properly. You line the 2 circles up, and that ensures that everything's in time with itself. So now I rotate the crank until my circle's at the top of the crank there. It's pretty hard to mess up, actually. Gently walk the gear onto the crankshaft. So I've got my 2 timing marks lined up. So now I'm gonna put the chain on. Let's take the gear off. And it really is a chain. This is a double roller. These are nice and tough. Great. And follow that up by the push rods. This part's fun. I like push rods. They're hollow tubes that transfer the motion from the lifter up to the rocker arm. They're hollow to allow oil to pass through them. The pressurized oil from the lifter gets pushed up through the push rod and lubricates the top of the engine. Rockers in line. All right, so now we have an age-old task here of setting the spring pressure on the valves. So everyone's got their own way of doing it. So you want to set a certain amount. First, I'm going to go until this has no play in it. In this case, you set it to 0 lash, which means touching with no space to move, but not tight. So it's starting to get there. So I can't move it up and down anymore, but I can still spin it very freely. Now that there's 0 lash, you give this a little bit of preload. Typically, you give it a half a turn, 180 degrees on that same bolt, and now that valve is set perfectly. If it's too tight, you're gonna wear stuff out or create excess heat. And if it's too loose, it's gonna rattle and basically wreck itself. Zero lash, can't move it up and down. You can spin it very freely. I'll give it a half turn. Now I just do that 16 more times.
Now that the assessment is completed on the Model T, we're getting it torn down.
This car's getting a whole restoration done on it. So the whole body's got to be stripped and body work.
The interior's been pulled, and we're gonna get into the paint, the mechanical, redo the wheels.
I'm gonna have to get right underneath it, I guess.
It's a full process on this one, and Barry's been having some fun with it.
Yeah, I'm having fun.
It's not your typical job.
It's sandwiched in between this piece of wood and the frame.
So you have to be part woodworker, part metal worker, painter, mechanic, a little bit of everything to get into these ones.
There's one fender off.
Fenderlicious. All that time for 2 little bolts?
More than 2 little bolts.
Today's day and age, the cars, they're bolted together, glued together. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that they do.
And then had another piece of wood on top of that.
These ones here, I mean, it's rudimentary. They have, you know, a metal frame, put wood on top of it, and sandwich it in there.
The top piece didn't make out too good. As soon as the drill hit it, it started spinning and chewing it all up. So.
Oh, yeah. It gets all lacquered, and that way you can't see the difference.
But the metal looks really good.
Yeah,
Those
like it's
pieces.
really a nice shape. There's no rust.
Barry's got lucky so far. The body on this thing is incredible.
I'll get this one stripped first, and then I'll work on the other side.
Well, at least the fender looks good. The wrestling match is over.
Yeah, that's it.
Look at these bad boys. That'll add like 50 horsepower.
You can't deliver a car that was restored the way it was originally built. We're working under modern constraints.
Barry's been working on a Model T, so he's got to strip it all down and save the metal as much as possible.
I'm just brushing some paint stripper on to get rid of all this lacquer that's on here. So lacquer, when you put the paint stripper on there, it comes off pretty easy.
Well, lacquer is a single-stage paint. Today's day and age, we've moved to a waterborne paint, which then gets cleared over top of it. The clear coat's what adds the hardening to it and the shine. Where the lacquer, it's something that gets laid on in many, many, many coats, and then you buffed and polished it up to its sheen. And you can keep buffing and polishing it as long as you have some paint left on there to do.
And when this is repainted, it'll be done in lacquer, just like it was.
Model Ts were the first mass-produced car in the world, but they were still very hand-formed.
When these were made, they're pretty simple, so they weren't perfect. Like, they had a lot of wobbles and dents.
The thing with old cars is their original fit and finish may not have been that good, but we're working under modern constraints. You can't deliver to a client a car that was restored the way it was originally built, and the owner is going to expect to have fit and finish almost as good as his modern car, if not as good.
Yeah, and that's about it for this.
Things are quiet in the metal shop, so Talon's working on upgrading the Camaro engine.
So now we put the intake manifold on, which is another classic way to increase horsepower on an engine. This is the gasket kit for the intake manifold. So these are little rubber gaskets. They're designed to go here. They call this the wall, and then the intake would squish down on it. Now, if you install these, you're almost guaranteed to have a leak here. So what I like to do with these is take them and just put them directly in the garbage. And then you get the right stuff, which is literally what this is called. What you want to do is you make a nice heavy bead on the front of there. Oh, yeah. Now, the fun part, this is always a challenge with the steel intake, but with an aluminum one, these are nice and light. So the intake manifold takes the air-fuel mixture from the carburetor and directs it into the different ports in the cylinder head. You want to go straight down, not to disrupt your beautiful bead. To increase horsepower, you choose an intake manifold that flows better. So this is a really good manifold, especially for a street vehicle. More power is more fun. After the intake manifold, we bolt the carburetor on. It's like Christmas, all these new parts. This is basically one step up from a stock carburetor. It's good on the street. This one's a 600 CFM, which is cubic feet per minute. The primaries here are these first throttle valves. At the beginning of the accelerator, it just opens these two smaller valves, right? And then as you go full throttle, it'll crank open these big guys at the back. So that's when it's gonna make full power. It'll be awesome for this guy. That's gonna go right up there, like the jewel on the top. Snug them up, opposite corners. That'll ensure that it settles evenly. Look at these bad boys. That is a beautiful valve cover. That'll add like 50 horsepower. These just simply thread on like that. So if you're out racing, you could check on your valve. It'll be cool, it'll sound cool. And being a manual transmission, it'll be exciting. I still have quite a bit of plumbing to do and wiring, and flushing the entire fuel line, putting the gas tank back in, it's, you know, small stuff like that. But wow, just beautiful. This guy's gonna be so happy.
This is Bring Your Hot Rod to Work Day. The car resembles the people. Talon's 57 there, slammed and cool. This is mine, this is big and bold like me. This is Bring Your Hot Rod to Work Day. You know, it's funny how the car kind of resembles the people. You know, Talon's 57 there, slammed and cool, and it's a little bit ratty like Talon. And this is mine, this is the 51 Merc. You know, this is big and bold like me. It's not something that we do every day. Figured it'd be a cool thing to do. You know, get out there and listen to things and maybe have Brad squeal his tires. We all love cars, so it's just perfect fit for us.
I got a 35 Chevy Coupe that I've had for well over 40 years. It was built as a hot rod back in the late 50s, and it's got a 302 cubic inch GMC 6-cylinder in it.
I love it.
It's sexy.
It says hot rod right on it.
Yeah.
It's got a really wild sound to it.
Dad's tractor on steroids.
The 1935 Chev Master Series is the only year Chevrolet made a car with suicide doors. It also has the rumble seat, which has the original interior, so it makes it quite unique. Well, imagine if you ever had a hammer on the brakes, you'd knock your teeth out.
My car's a 57 Chevrolet two-door wagon. I basically got into cars because my dad was always working on cars.
Nice.
This car's not really a restoration. Under the skin, almost every component has been modified. Motor's moved back about 17 inches. It's into the firewall. The firewall's cut out. It's a G-body clip. Let's see Greg's hot rod.
This is mine. This is a 51 Merc.
Too cool. It's so Greg.
This is 40 years in the making. Dad and I went and picked this up when I was 12. When you're a car guy and your father passes you down something that you've loved your whole life, it just adds that sentimental value, which makes it just not a car anymore. It's part of your family, and it's so smooth. And hopefully you can pass it on to a next generation. Jessica brought in her 1986 Mustang.
This thing is sweet.
I bought this car 3 years ago, so I decided to just take the plunge. It's got a motor from a 91 Fox body in it, so it's fuel injected. Basically bone stock, just a couple bolt-ons to keep her going.
Oh, yeah. It's a 302.
That's her.
Oh, this is not stock. This is different intake.
Oh, yeah, I threw a Pro Comp one on.
Cold air intake,
Oh, yeah.
MSD ignition.
You know what they say, built Ford tough.
Batter.
Oh, those 302s sound awesome.
I know. That's nice.
Loud one. Just straight pipe the whole way back.
Well, is there a muffler?
Nope.
No muffler?
Nope, nothing. And I was like, you know what? Let's keep it loud.
Oh, Brad.
to smoke like this.
Hey, Brad, pick up your rubber. Look at this. Look at that, right up through.
Oh boy, someone had a big smoke.
Woo!
My son Lucas and I, we enter Chevelle into burnout competitions, and we've won a few times.
That was just our smallest burnout.
Wow.
Pretty tidy, Brad.
That is
Yeah,
nice and
it's
tidy.
tight.
Looks good.
Fits in there.
Looks like you're up all night, Paul.
No, I don't polish that often.
He says he doesn't polish that often, but he spent like 2 hours this morning.
Yeah, of course I did.
I don't know.
What?
Why
are you so honest?
Brad with his Chevelle, Lucas is always with him in it. You know, he goes to the burnout competition with them.
So you're gonna drive it one day, you think?
Maybe.
Maybe.
What makes you think he hasn't already? You're not home all the time.
Yeah.
And that car, it will be Lucas's.
Oh, really?
He's car crazy as well. You know, you can see that. This is what it's about. You know, the cars stay with the family. They go through, they become part of the family. And for Ron to have his passed down, me to have mine passed down, it's amazing.